be the chair here of the 11th Annual JAPE Conference, the closing session. Quite an honor. And the title of today's session, Challenges and Opportunities for Research and Design of Future Learning Spaces. As you can see here, with the names, there's several people joining us from abroad. You can see their pictures along the bottom. I'll get to that in a few minutes about what they're doing here and who they are, as well as the names of the Links I-Core panelists that you see. I'll also introduce them in just a moment. So bear with me for a moment. Trying to move the slide forward. There we go. Okay, when we talk about future learning spaces, we're talking both about a theoretical issue and a practical issue. From the aspect of theory, we know a lot already about how people learn. But the role of space within the question of how people learn is something that only in recent years has it emerged as a more interesting or more research topic of inquiry. In particular because today we have spaces that didn't exist in the past, for example, cyberspaces, and we have much greater mobility like we've never had in the past. On a practical side, there's many people that want to, or many schools and institutions that want to construct new spaces for learning and redesign spaces that already exist. But that presents a large challenge, particularly because it costs a lot of money, and we don't want to waste their money. We want to use it to improve the learning goals. So practice needs to be guided by theory, and at the same time, the more practical examples we have in the field, we can go and sharpen our own theories. So there's a reflexive relationship between theory and practice. Now, where does this question come from? Why are we even talking about future learning spaces? 4 years ago, the Israeli Center for Research Excellence, I-Core, awarded a large interinstitutional, multidisciplinary, and multi-year grant to researchers interested in the question of learning in a networked society. Three of the leaders of the Links I-Core Center, Professor Dani Ben-Zvi, Professor Tamar Weiss, and Professor Yael Kali, who are going to be joining us on stage for the discussion a little bit later. So they're 3 of the 14 principal investigators of Links, and there are over 100 different researchers in the Links I-Core Center. And Links I-Core has many ongoing research projects. One of the projects among them asks the question about future learning spaces. So that's the question that we're dealing with today. I'm currently the director of the Future Learning Spaces project within Links I-Core. By the way, I apologize about my voice. It's cracking a little bit. Apparently, I've been practicing this presentation too many times. So we're currently involved in designing our own future learning space at the University of Haifa. What you see in the back behind me is the blueprint of this future learning space. It's currently under construction. And I want to actually take this opportunity to invite everyone here in the audience. It'll only be built and ready by the fall semester of 2016, in about half a year from now. But I do want to take the opportunity to invite everyone here to come and to take part in our future learning spaces. The goal of the Future Learning Spaces project and of this particular construction is, one, to advance the theoretical issues, to better understand how people learn, and particularly the role of spaces within that, and of course to advance practical issues for schools, because there's many different schools, institutions in Israel who are investing a lot of money in redesigning spaces, and so to also to assist them. Now, as part of our efforts in order to advance both the theory and practice, we have reached out to different international experts. 4 of those international experts were very proud that they've been willing to wake up early in the morning, because they're all in North America, either in the US or Canada, to come and join us today and talk about their future learning spaces. And they've been engaging in research on future learning spaces already for several years. The first international expert is Scott Mcdonald from Penn State University. After that, Jianwei Zhang from the State University of New York in Albany. Elizabeth Charles from Dawson College in Montreal, Canada. And Jim Slota from the University of Toronto in Canada, and I believe he's moving to Boston College quite soon. So before I expand a little bit more and introduce them so they can get started, they're going to each of them introduce the setting and the conceptual ideas and the design of their own future learning space. I'm just going to a little bit talk about the idea of future learning spaces to give us things to be aware of and to listen to think about as they talk. So it's a big concept, future learning spaces. I mean, 3 very loaded words put into one concept. So one way that we can try to deal with this is to break it apart and look at each of the individual parts on their own and then see how they're integrated. So the first idea is future, and particularly the innovation age. I had a very nice thing to say about this, but after the keynote this morning, I don't know if there's much I can add. Anytime we talk about future learning spaces, we need to be aware of the idea of the society with which we live in today, the current society and where it's headed, of course. It's not only about the technologies. Of course, there's many differences from the past age, let's call it the industrial age, to today's innovation or information or age of technology. One of them being the focus from the individual learner to the collaborative learner. Another one in terms of learning is the focus on mastering existing knowledge to creating new knowledge and learning. Now when it comes to learning, we of course want to base our ideas on the most advanced ideas about learning, and one of the natural places to look is in the learning sciences. You see here the picture on the left of the book, How People Learn. That's from the year 2000, so we've already made advances from there, but that's just an example of a body of knowledge that is accumulated, a scientific body of knowledge which is accumulated and was able to articulate some principles of learning which should guide our future learning spaces, both theoretically and practically. One of the big ideas of the learning sciences is the socio-cultural view of learning. And this connects between the future and learning. The socio-cultural view doesn't view learning as knowledge transmission and acquisition, but rather it views learning as participation within particular communities which are embedded in culture and history. And so that connects between the idea of future because we of course want to design learning that's relevant to the innovation age. Finally, the idea of spaces cannot come alone. It's not an island, and it needs words or terms or concepts like future and learning to give it direction, because alone it doesn't mean much. For example, if I was a teacher and I wanted to improve the learning in my classroom, and all I did was change the spaces, I probably wouldn't do anything. If anything, it might even be detrimental to my goals if I didn't think about the other aspects which spaces need to be integrated with. This was a big mistake that happened with the big introduction of computers into education, which ended up becoming oversold and underused. And if we want to really use spaces and integrate spaces to support learning, we need to think about things like our pedagogy, the different activities the students engage in, what technology we want to use, collaborative technologies, Web 2.0 technologies, for example, and of course the subject matter that we want to teach. So there needs to be a synergetic integration here, which is really the key idea of future learning spaces. I want to invite you in the audience to think of this idea as you listen to our 4 international experts, because all 4 of them have put a lot of thought into this synergetic integration between these different components of learning. And that's, I think, really where the magic is when it comes to future learning spaces. Now, as for our 4 speakers, we've organized them a little bit into types of future learning spaces. So they're going to be talking in this order from left to right. The ones on the left are, in the blue color, are what we call content-flexible spaces. Meaning these are spaces which are particularly designed to allow for any content to be taught. And we have 2 examples here. The first one we're going to hear from Scott Mcdonald. And Scott Mcdonald, I do want to make a small note that he actually is going to be talking about 2 adjoining spaces. Just one of them, his main studio space, is the open learning space. So you'll probably be talking about another part as well, but this will be the major focus. And in the open learning space, there is no teacher. So this is a content-flexible space with no teacher, and that's mainly what he'll be discussing. The second space that you'll be hearing about is from Jianwei Zhang from SUNY Albany. And also there's a content-flexible space, but in this case there is a teacher, hence we'll refer to it as an open instructional space. And in this space there's a lot of innovation done on the online space, and also integrating that online space with the physical space where the students are learning. So really pay attention to that point in his presentation. Next, we'll go over to the content-specific spaces, and first we'll hear from Liz Charles from Dawson College, which is a pre-collegiate grades 12 and 13 system which exists in certain parts of Canada and North America. And her space, although today is used in 14 different disciplinary areas, it was originally designed to teach physics in this setting. And the space is actually a stage for learning. The space was very uniquely designed, a lot of design considerations to make it a stage for a certain type of learning that they were going for. Finally, we're going to hear several very, very unique and innovative examples of another type of content-specific space from Jim Slota from the University of Toronto. And in these spaces, they're not only used as a stage for learning, but the space is also, it becomes the content. So whether the students are learning evolution, seismology, which is the study of earthquakes, or animal foraging behavior, the students are actually here exploring the space as they learn. So with that said, I do want to give a big thank you to our experts for taking the time out of their day. For us, it's the end of a 2-day conference. We're all tired and ready to go home. But they're now early in the morning, so hopefully they can revitalize us with some new energy. And in addition, I do want to mention that I looked in the weather today, and I know it's been very cold, -20 centigrade a few days ago at least in New York. And I'm sorry to rub it in, but we've been having beach weather here. So hopefully we can warm you up a little bit as well. So with that said, I want to turn it over to Scott Mcdonald to talk about the first space.